Nothing but a circus. That's Daniel Levin's take on working for the past 20 years with governments and development institutions around the world. He's a lawyer and political advisor, and his new book aims to provide an expose of the secretive world of the global political elite, what he calls misadventures amongst the powerful. Welcome to you indeed. I mean, I have to say, it's all a bit depressing, this, really. You know, you're working with these important people, taking important decisions, yet you just show them as fallible human beings in it for themselves without really much connection to the end product.
Well, I was hoping that perhaps people would laugh more than actually cry at all that. So you can also just take it as entertainment and not as serious politics, perhaps. That's the theme of these months now.
But I mean, is that your view, that it's all pretty futile, that global government, international institutions don't really achieve very much other than pay for the salary and expenses of the people involved?
No, I think there are obviously strong people within any institution. I think the larger the institution, the higher the degree of less competency when you go up. But there are people who are attracted to politics because they're hardwired that way, and then there are people who turn into a certain caricature perhaps because they're around politics. So it's a combination of those two that create the more tragic or comical.
But how, I mean, could it be done better? How could we get a system of government that actually serves the people?
It depends how much out of the box we want to think. If we just look at other parts of government, we look at the judiciary, for example, you have qualification criteria for judges. Someone who wants to be a judge has to qualify in certain ways. You have to pass a test to drive a car, yet you have absolutely no qualification criteria to actually have senior positions in government. In fact, in some ministries, you have no competency whatsoever. So maybe it's time to rethink that. It's maybe a little bureaucratic in that approach, but at least there should be certain personal and professional qualification requirements.
I mean, that would, of course, go further to having a kind of governing class if people qualified for it. I mean, I suppose it's a bit like what they've tried in France with the ENAC system.
Yeah, but the idea is, of course, to look outside only the traditional avenues towards that. I mean, just when you look at judges, you don't only have to have particular tracks to become a judge, too. So the idea is, the broader you make those criteria, the better.
But there's still this risk, and really that's what you focus on, is that the people actually involved grow away from the people or the causes they're supposed to be serving.
Yeah, there is that detachment. I don't know how much of it is inevitable, but if you're looking at the current trends, what you're really actually seeing, the saddest part about it is the dilution of power in those areas where you expect it to be. So after all the noise with, let's say, the Trump ascendancy has settled, the question would be how much power actually does still come out of the presidency, how much is moved to other parts, which are perhaps not that regulated, the military, technology companies, and so on. So we're comparing lesser evils here.
I mean, you're a lawyer and an advisor. You've met very, very powerful people indeed. And what you say is, in your experience, I mean, there's one Chinese gentleman you write about, I mean, basically idiots, vain idiots.
Actually, the Chinese story, I thought, it's not, the vain or the vanity narcissism is a chapter for itself, and I think you need a dosage of that to actually run for office or stay in power. But I wouldn't say that everyone in these chapters is an idiot. Some are actually quite brilliant, but generally they use their brilliance for more sinister or more manipulative or self-serving purposes. That's my bigger danger. I think the idiots are the lesser danger than those who actually have the tools and can use their surroundings that way.
But I mean, you know, what you seem to say is that when you get in a position of power, people tend to abuse it, bully others, expect subservience and not to be questioned.
Yeah, and I don't think that's anything surprising. You'll see that in a corporation, you'll see that in any institution too. The higher you go, the more there is a closed bubble where there's a lot of sycophancy and a lot of support of those in power and of their narrative too. And
people like you, advisors, I mean, you're just impotent. You can't speak up really and confront it.
It's not so. It's that you really have to find the fertile grounds. You have to find the people within power structures that you can work with. It's often not the president or prime minister or minister. Sometimes it's an advisor, sometimes it's a spouse, a person of influence where you can actually accomplish certain things. And I think that's possible to do. But I think if you're just going to expect those who reach the top of these power pyramids to be the benevolent dictator idea, that you're going to be sorely disappointed.
Have you got any heroes?
Heroes in terms of being good or being clever?
Good leaders achieving good things.
Yeah, I think my experience is, for example, in China for many years, where I do believe that there was a conscience in the choices that were made, which was sacrificing liberty for the sake of feeding a population of 1.5 billion. So in that sense, hero is a big word. I'm not going to look in politics for finding personal heroes, people, Mother Teresa's. No, I'm not going to find much of that.
OK, Daniel Levin, thank you very much indeed. His book is called Nothing But a Circus. What about the weather?